Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Plink. I respond to various theological and ideological questions and claims from a rationalistic and naturalistic approach in an effort to give and explain the opposite viewpoint and help to balance the conversation. Before we get into today's video, a shout out to my most recent super thankers, RJ, Piao Meow Noir, On Design, James Lamica, and Eric Mishima. Thank you all very much for your generosity. You are the atheistic arc reactor that powers my skeptical suit of armor in the battle against biblical BS. Thank you very much for helping me to do what I do. Also, a brief mention of a couple of milestones the channel has achieved since the last video. This channel has now surpassed 10,000 subscribers and over 1 million channel views. Thank you all so much, everyone, for your contributions to those numbers and helping the channel to continue to grow. If you'd like to help it grow further and are not already subscribed, please do so to keep up with my content. And if you like what you see, click the like, pop a comment down below, all that good stuff, because it really does help out the channel. Now on to today's video. Comic books have always been very near and dear to my heart. A family member got me into comics at a young age by giving me some of his classic X-Men issues from the 70s, and I've been hooked ever since. So when people start taking shots at the world of DC and Marvel Comics, particularly from a religious perspective, well, them's fighting words. Today we're going to be looking at a video that did exactly that. I say did because the video has since been removed from the channel that it was originally posted on. I guess people don't like it when you come for their comics. But the video features an apologist named Sam Shamoun, and he's fairly active on YouTube on a variety of channels, as well as on his own channel. He most often is involved in Christianity versus Muslim arguments, and I'm usually happy to let two religious factions duke it out, because that keeps them out of the hair of the non-religious. But he came for my comics, so deleted video or not, it's getting a response. Sam is here today to tell us why the universes of Marvel and DC Comics are against God. So take it away, Sam.
Are you aware that Thor is not a comic book figure? Thor actually is a god. He's one of the Norse gods. Tahir, be patient, man. Stop acting up. The Seven Sleepers would be based on an event that was exaggerated and embellished. This is based on the Norse religion. The Norse religion. So according to this mythology, Odin, Loki, Thor, these are all gods and goddesses. So now, you see what Marvel Comics did? It took an actual pagan religion, the Norse religion, and turned it into a comic book, indoctrinating children with paganism.
The hell you say? Thor and the Asgardians of Marvel Comics are based on Norse mythology? Well, great Caesar's ghost! I had no idea! Because I'm totally uneducated and a wretch who doesn't have the faintest conception of things that are common knowledge. Next thing you're going to tell me is that Kevin Sorbo show from the 90s, Hercules: The Legendary Journeys, was based on some kind of ancient mythology too. Yeah, Sam, we know. We all know. Do you have such little respect for your audience that you think there are people who go to the Marvel Thor films and don't know that these characters are based on Norse myth? Are there really any people out there who think the writers at Marvel came up with all these characters out of whole cloth? This is well known and understood. But to try to make the claim that it was done in an attempt to indoctrinate readers or fans into a pagan religion is idiotic in the extreme. This is not a pagan religion. This is myth. I do hope you know the difference between the two. There is no worshipping of the Asgardians that goes on in Marvel Comics. These characters are portrayed as effectively aliens who were the basis for the Norse myth that has existed for hundreds of years. Marvel isn't trying to use it to coax children into worshipping Thor. Hell, the very idea of fictionalizing mythological figures makes people less likely to believe that they actually exist, not more so. Kids aren't watching cartoons or reading comics and then thinking these characters actually really truly exist. At least not the ones who are old enough to read and discern between real and fictional characters to begin with.
Even with Wonder Woman, have you ever wondered why she calls on Hera? Great Hera. Hera is one of the goddesses of the Greeks. Do you know that?
Yeah, no shit, Sherlock.
Diana. Diana is one of the pagan goddesses of the Greeks. Artemis. Artemis. And they had a temple to Artemis in Ephesus, where supposedly a meteorite sent by her landed and crashed in Ephesus. Artemis is also called Diana. So are you seeing in the comic books, they're taking the gods and goddesses of the pagans and turning them into superhero cartoon characters for children to imitate and idolize?
Well, for one thing, the Diana of Greek myth is not the Diana of Wonder Woman comics. In Wonder Woman, Diana is Wonder Woman's name. She isn't the same character as the Greek goddess Diana. Having the same name as someone else does not mean that you are them, Sam. Newsflash, these women weren't trying to coax children into believing in pagan religions just because of what their names are. But at any rate, again, Wonder Woman comics using Greek mythology as its basis is not an attempt to heathenize the youth. This is just using myth and legend as the basis for some fictional storytelling. At no point in the comics are people advised or encouraged to worship these superheroes. If anything, Thor, Wonder Woman, Hercules, all of these mythological figures, they're acting in a servile capacity. They're going around helping people and performing acts of servitude to others. They certainly aren't taking on any kind of a deified role in their stories, with people worshiping them or praying to them. And as far as them being held up as characters for kids to look up to and emulate, well, yeah. Because they're taking on the role of heroes. No different from kids looking up to and emulating Spider-Man or Iron Man or Batman or Green Lantern. Characters who have no mythological or religious impact of any kind. But they're taking on the role of fictional heroes who display positive qualities such as bravery, selflessness, honor, empathy, strength, etc. But no one's out here saying Batman is coaxing children away from Jesus. And it's not like all the fictionalized gods of the comics are shown in a positive light. For every Thor, there's a Loki. For every Hera, there's an Ares or Hades. They're portrayed as fictional heroes as well as fictional villains. No different from Batman and Joker. No one is saying to worship Batman and Joker, so no one's saying to worship Wonder Woman or Ares. No one is saying they're real. No one is saying stop being Christian because comics exist. I mean, you're being ridiculous, Sam.
So what you think are comic book characters are actually based on pagan gods and goddesses in such a way in order to indoctrinate children to look to these gods and goddesses to replace the true God revealed in the Lord Jesus Christ and His true word, the Holy Bible.
Okay, so if we go with your line of thinking, by putting fictionalized versions of non-Judeo-Christian mythological characters into comics, they're attempting to indoctrinate the youth into worshiping those characters. Okay, then what would it be if fictionalized versions of Judeo-Christian characters were utilized in comic books? It would have to be the same thing, right? If Christian figures appeared in Marvel and DC comics, that would mean the writers are trying to indoctrinate children into the Abrahamic religions, yes? I mean, in the Marvel universe, Adam of Adam and Eve, Jesus of Nazareth, and even Yahweh himself all exist. And then in DC Comics, there's the Presence, which is depicted as the ultimate, all-powerful entity of the DC universe. Far, far more powerful than Wonder Woman or Hera or any of the other lesser gods. And the Presence is a fictionalized counterpart of the god of Abrahamic religions. Not to mention other characters from Christian mythology, such as multiple versions of Lucifer, the fallen angel, and various other angelic, demonic, and deity characters that come along with that.
As the challenged, I set the meter and take the first move.
So, help me out here, Sam. If including fictionalized versions of Thor and Hera and the like is indoctrinating children into worshiping them, then what does including fictionalized versions of Jesus or the Christian God mean? Let me guess. Including them is somehow disrespecting the Christian religion by reducing the characters down to cartoonish comic versions of themselves. And it's actually showing disdain for Christianity, right? While doing the exact same thing with the other mythological characters is somehow elevating them and trying to get children to worship them. It's blasphemous when it's done to Christian characters, but it's reverence when it's done to any non-Christian characters, right? One rule for me and another for thee, and all that jazz.
Yeah, even Superman, the one where he had a son with Lois Lane. Do you remember the scene where as he's looking over the earth, he hears the voice of his father pretty much saying that I gave the world my only son? You're going to see how they deliberately depicted Superman to be an alternate to the Lord Jesus Christ. Even the word Il, because the creators of Superman were Jews. Il is the Hebrew name for God.
Well, it's certainly no secret that Superman is often depicted as a bit of a messianic figure, but that isn't by design. That was never the original intent with his creation. Superman was not envisioned as a Jesus figure by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, two Jewish teens in the 1930s. But he gradually became one, mainly thanks to his movies, which is where most people know him from. Whatever the metaphor at play, he is and was always meant to be a symbol of goodwill and brotherly love. So the whole voice of his father saying he gave his son to the earth was not part of the original conception of the character. And it was almost entirely a creation of the films, which weren't even controlled or overseen by DC Comics, but instead by those films' individual directors and writers. So it's not as if it was a concerted effort to impose Superman as a Christ-like figure right from the beginning. And I mean, even if it were, so what? This whole line of argumentation against Superman seems to go against your point. Making the most popular and famous comic book character in the history of comic books, a character that is known clear across the globe by people in every nation, even those that don't particularly like or deal in comic books, and then turning him into an analog for Jesus Christ, would only seem to strengthen the ideas and ideals espoused in Christianity, wouldn't it? Think about it. If a kid in a non-Christian majority country were to read Superman comics or watch Superman movies and totally fall in love with the character, including all of his virtues, look up to him, want to emulate him, and then later got exposed to Christianity and all the stories of Jesus Christ, wouldn't they be more likely to look upon Christianity favorably and have an automatic affinity for it due to the parallels between it and their favorite superhero in blue? I mean, how can you say in one breath that non-Christian comic book characters are taking children away from Christianity, but then characters that are total Jesus stand-ins are somehow also taking children away from Christianity? Everything is just indoctrinating kids out of Christianity, I suppose. Non-Christian characters make kids heathens. Christian analogous characters make kids heathens. Directly and explicitly Christian characters make kids heathens somehow. Don't you see? Everything everywhere is just making the kids heathens.
So what was my point?
You had one?
These comic characters, they're not as innocent as you think. It is a deliberate, concerted effort of reintroducing to the masses the gods and goddesses of the pagans. The gods and goddesses of the pagans. You see? They just need the light and their capacity of goodness. That's why I sent them my only son. Right? Even though you live among them as a human being, you're not one of them, Kalel. Even the word El, E-L-L, E-L is Hebrew for God. And these were Jews who deliberately created Superman as a way of mimicking the Lord Jesus Christ.
No, sir. Afraid not. I mean, not to get all actually on you, but that isn't correct. Siegel and Schuster did not name him Kal-El with the E-L. It was just Kal-El with an L by itself. His name having the E-L didn't come about until almost 20 years later in Superman number 113, and that wasn't even written by Siegel and Schuster. It was Bill Finger instead. Also, you're definitely going to need to have more to go on if you're trying to establish that there is a concerted, intentional effort to use these comic characters to impart pagan religion and turn people away from Christianity. I mean, we're talking about an industry that is nearly 100 years old, that has gone through massive changes over the years, has changed hands to different editors, creative content directors, and parent companies over and over and over again. The direction and implicit or explicit goals of the company have changed so much over such a long period of time, and yet you're trying to claim an underlying and consistent thread of anti-Christian motivation throughout all of it? And this is with several of its mainstay, largest, and most popular characters being unabashedly Christian.
You're full of shit.
Oh, yeah.
Is it clear now what they're doing? Diana, pagan goddess. Artemis, Aphrodite, Ishtar. Great Hera. Hera, one of the pagan goddesses, right? Of the Greeks. Are you catching it? Thor, he's a Norse god. Loki, a Norse god.
Ghost Rider, Mephisto, Christian demon analogs. Michael Demiurgos, Christian angel. Lucifer Morningstar, fallen Christian angel. We can play this game back and forth all day, Sam, but you're going to have a lot more than the fact that there was an expansive fictional universe that has existed and grown for nearly a century with a constant necessity to create new stories and settings and situations, and it's ended up borrowing from virtually all mythological, historical, cultural, and spiritual ideas from all over the world in order to continue churning out content. What we are seeing is writers under pressure to constantly produce, drawing inspiration from anything they can get their hands on. Not a concerted anti-Christian conspiracy spanning multiple generations and mediums.
Now, going back to the clip. Exactly, John Baptiste. He just got the exact wording. Superman Returns. You guys didn't catch this when you saw it the first time? See, this is what's happening. Satan, through the media, has put you into a lull, a sleep. Wake up. The Lord Jesus says we need to be awake and alert and not asleep.
Yeah, we are in total Christian conspiracy land here. So let me get this straight. Satan is using the media to create characters like Superman, who children will idolize and look up to, and that character is a total Jesus Christ stand-in, in order to get kids and fans to dislike Jesus Christ, even though he's so very similar to the comic characters that they love? I think Satan's way off the mark with this one.
And the way society gets you to be desensitized and accept their agenda is through films. Did you know what opened the door for accepting homosexuality? Even though for years people were pushing back against it, you know what opened the door? The movie Brokeback Mountain. It was that movie that then opened the floodgate for people to accept homosexuality. Not exaggerating.
And now we've strayed away from comic books to a wider indictment of the film industry, and from pagan mythological characters to why aren't people outraged by gays anymore? Dude, homosexuality has been around for as long as humans have been around. Not just since Jake Gyllenhaal couldn't quit Heath Ledger. And the unfortunately overly long road to cultural acceptance of homosexuality has been moving steadily in this direction in America for a lot longer than just the last 18 years since that film was released. I mean, I'm not going to turn this from a lighthearted examination of the religious underpinnings of comic books into an in-depth exploration of legal and cultural attitudes towards the LGBTQ community. But suffice it to say, American culture has been on a steady trek towards greater acceptance of homosexuality for over 100 years, since some of the first decriminalization efforts began to have real tangible effects. But hey, this line of argumentation was a great way to out yourself as a gay hater. So good on you there. I always do like it when bigots let you know that they're bigots. But now, do you have anything else to say on the topic at hand, or just more Christian conspiracy babble?
So Hollywood is used of Satan to slowly desensitize you and then feed you slowly their poison until you reach a point where they've gotten you hypnotized to accept their agenda.
So then, no, just more Christian conspiracy babble. Well, to be fair, everything Sam said has been nonsensical babble throughout this entire video. But at least it was mildly entertaining up until he started his unhinged ranting. So yeah, Marvel and DC Comics have used virtually every myth and legend from every culture at this point as fodder for their stories. Yes, they've used the pantheons of virtually all ancient civilizations as comic characters. They've also used King Arthur and Merlin and all the characters from Arthurian legend. They've also used non-theistic spiritual legends of ghosts or spirits that don't involve gods at all. Monsters like vampires and zombies, aliens, interdimensional beings, space wizards, elves, dwarves, goblins, and dragons, all practically straight out of J.R.R. Tolkien. They use frickin' everything, including a hefty helping of Christian mythology to help them tell their never-ending stories. It's all just fodder for storytelling, not a satanic conspiracy to turn people away from God. At the end of the day, I actually feel really sorry for people like Sam. People whose minds are so poisoned with conspiratorial BS that they can't even let themselves enjoy some simple stories made purely for the purposes of entertainment. If every little thing in movies, television, stories, games, fiction, if it all just so triggers you right into, "This is the work of the devil," then you must live a very drab and angry life. You're missing out on a lot of wonderful fun. But in the end, it's all going to come to nothing anyway, because Sam's little semi-psychotic rant against comic books and the film industry at large is not going to take a single ticket sale from the theaters or a single cent out of the coffers of the comic book industry. So lunatics like Sam can keep shouting into the ether and giving us something to continue to laugh at. So that's where we'll end things for today. So thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like this video, comment, and subscribe so you'll always be notified when a new video comes out. Till next time, I'm Professor Plink, reminding you to keep striving for greater understanding. It's the best way to get wherever you want to go.